Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. At least 2 persons killed and several others injured in central Paris shooting. Togo's President Faure Gnassingbé to oversee armed forces operations amid growing security concerns in the northern region. United States House of Representatives January 6 Committee releases final report. My name is Tunde Ido. Now the details. At least 2 people have been killed and 4 others injured after a shooting in the central district of Paris. Paris police said they are dealing with an incident on the Rue de Hygin and urged the public to stay away from the area. The office added that a 69-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the incident, adding that the motive of the gunman remains unclear. According to a shopkeeper in the area, about 7 or 8 shots were fired in Rue de Hygin in the 10th arrondissement. A St. Petersburg politician, Nikita Yuferev, has asked prosecutors to investigate Russian President Vladimir Putin for using the word war to describe the conflict in Ukraine, accusing him of breaking his own law. President Putin has for months described the invasion as a special military operation, but yesterday referred to the conflict as a war in a departure from his usual language. Yuferev, an opposition councillor in the city where Putin was born, said he knew his legal challenge would go nowhere, but he had filed it to expose the mendacity of the system. He stated that the petition was just to draw the attention of everyone to the contradiction and the injustice of the laws that President Putin adopts and signs. North Korea has described a United States report that Russian mercenary force Wagner Group had received a shipment of North Korean rockets and missiles to support Moscow's war in Ukraine as absurd. White House National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby said yesterday that Pyongyang had sent an initial cache of weapons to the Wagner Group. However, a North Korean Foreign Ministry spokesperson said the news was false and the most absurd red herring, which is not worth any comment or interpretation. The spokesperson said the Democratic People's Republic of Korea remains unchanged in its principled stand on the issue of arms transactions between the DPRK and Russia, which has never happened. A North Korean official added that the U.S. itself was bringing bloodshed and destruction to Ukraine by providing it with various kinds of lethal weapons. The United Kingdom government considering blocking Scottish reforms, making it easier for people to change gender. It comes after the Scottish Parliament voted to lower the age when people can apply to change their legal gender to 16 and remove the need for a medical diagnosis of gender dysphoria. This prompted a clash with the UK government, who have concerns over safety for women and children. However, the Nicola Sturgeon Scottish government says it will fight any attempt to stop it. On Thursday, members of the Scottish Parliament voted 86 to 39 to approve the controversial self-identification system, which makes it easier for people to obtain a gender recognition certification. And in Africa, Togo's President Faure Gnassingbé will oversee the armed forces as part of a reshuffle amid growing security concerns in the northern region. This is according to a decree announced today. Until this year, Togo had been spared the frequent Islamist violence that has spread across most of West Africa over the past decade, including into Togo's northern neighbor Burkina Faso. But a series of attacks, including one in July in which at least 12 people were killed, has forced residents to flee and rattled the armed forces under the presidential decree, read by a spokesperson on national television, the Ministry of the Armed Forces will become part of the presidency. The Minister of the Armed Forces has stepped down, while the Chief of Staff of the Togolese Armed Forces has been replaced. Oil company Shell today said it will pay 15 million euros to Niger Delta farmers to compensate them for damage from pipeline leaks. A Dutch appeal court ruled last year, following 13 years of legal battles, that Shell's Nigerian branch must pay for a series of leaks and that the parent company must install new pipeline equipment to prevent further devastating spills. Shell said that it had reached a deal with a Dutch environmental group that has helped the affected communities. The deal also confirms the installation of a leak detection system on 20 pipeline segments in accordance with the Dutch court ruling, and that remediation work has been completed. Despite acknowledging that the settlement follows the Dutch court ruling, the oil firm said the agreement is no admission of liability and settles all claims and ends all pending litigation related to the spills. 4 Niger Delta farmers and fishermen sued Shell in the Netherlands to pay for cleaning up spills from its pipelines in the Niger Delta, a major oil-producing region. They were aided by a Dutch branch of Friends of the Earth. The legal battle has lasted so long that the original farmers have now all died, while their survivors and the affected communities pushed on. News outside Africa: Israeli police have shot dead a Palestinian citizen in the central city of Kafr Qasim in the Uku, an incident that also left at least 3 police officers injured. Family members of the man killed today were quoted by the local media as denying police allegations that the man had been attempting to attack the officers. Israeli police said its officers had been lured into an ambush in Kafr Qasim, a Palestinian city in Israel 12 miles northeast of Tel Aviv and just outside the occupied West Bank. Israel police had said its officers were responding to a false report of a violent incident where a man attempted to open fire on them before later ramming a car into some officers. Security camera footage released by Israeli police shows a man emerging out of a building and attempting to fire on what appears to be a police officer before a car later emerges and reverses towards a crowd of officers. At least 1 police officer has been killed and several others injured in a suicide car bombing at a checkpoint in Pakistan's capital, Islamabad. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan (TTP) armed group, also known as the Pakistani Taliban, claimed responsibility for today's attack in a text message sent to newsmen. The bombing took place near the police headquarters on a main road that leads to government building housing the country's parliament and high officers. According to reports, at least 4 police officers and 2 civilians were wounded in the blast. In a statement, the country's Interior Ministry said the car that was used in the attack was packed with explosives and headed for a high-value target in Islamabad without giving any other details. French serial killer Charles Sobrav, who police say was responsible for a string of murders in the 1970s and 80s, has been released from prison in Nepal after 19 years behind bars. He was driven out of the prison in the capital, Kathmandu, today in a blue police vehicle and taken to immigration detention and then to Kathmandu airport. According to his lawyer, he is to be deported to France, where he is expected to arrive early tomorrow morning. According to immigration officials, Sobrav has been barred from returning to Nepal for 10 years. Sobrav is suspected of murdering more than 20 backpackers who were traveling along the hippie trail in Asia, including 6 women in Thailand, some of who turned up dead on a beach near the resort of Pattaya. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has urged people to start wearing masks again as the country steps up surveillance of COVID cases. Mr. Modi held a review meeting yesterday amid a surge in cases in China, which has put India on alert. The Prime Minister called for increased testing and encouraged a return to COVID-appropriate behavior. India had relaxed its COVID rules, including mask wearing, earlier this year after a drop in infection levels. The country witnessed two deadly waves in 2020 and 2022, and the government had come under heavy criticism for its handling of the second wave in the summer of 2021. Japan will boost its 2023 defense budget to a record 6.8 trillion yen in the face of regional security concerns and threat posed by China and North Korea. Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's cabinet approved the budget of a total of 114.4 trillion yen today. The budget was pushed up mainly by a 20% increase in military spending and higher social security costs for a fast-aging population. This is part of a controversial new national security strategy that aims to double Japan's defense spending to 2% of its gross domestic product (GDP) by 2027. The new spending target follows the NATO standard and will eventually push Japan's annual budget to about 10 trillion yen, the world's third biggest after the United States and China. The strategy aims to provide Japan with a counter-strike capability that can preempt enemy attacks and protect itself from growing risk from North Korea, Russia, and China. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this short commercial break. Please stay with us.
Arrested, affected, sound, found. What do we see? What do we say? Flowing from a spring. A fact A to Z. Check and confirm. Ever is pounding current events. Traveling down from the business gist to the globally arising happenings, to the sports news, to the bittersweet infos. Guided transmission, even diffusion, vast and fast, detailed facts are fled. Within seconds, nuggets of words that flew across borders are fired. Stories short and long, wrapped in bundles of words, broken and dissected as it is, except misheard. This is the news as it is.
You're still watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. The United States House of Representatives January 6 committee final report asserts that former President Donald Trump criminally engaged in a multi-part conspiracy to overturn the lawful result of the 2020 presidential election. The committee also charged the former president of failing to act to stop his supporters from attacking the Capitol. The 845-page report released yesterday concludes an extraordinary 18-month investigation into the former president and the violent insurrection 2 years ago. It comes after the panel interviewed more than 1,000 witnesses, held 10 hearings, and obtained millions of pages of documents. The witnesses, ranging from many of Trump's closest aides to law enforcement to some of the rioters themselves, detailed Trump's actions in the week ahead of the insurrection. The 9-member panel concluded that the insurrection gravely threatened democracy and put the lives of American lawmakers at risk. United States President Joe Biden has urged Americans to cast aside the partisan politics that have divided the nation and embrace the caring spirit of the holiday season. In a short holiday speech, Mr. Biden said Americans are emerging from a brutal couple of years where the COVID-19 pandemic robbed people of loved ones and new memories. He said Americans should embrace this time of the year as a reminder to care for one another and look past partisan divides and labels like Republicans or Democrats. Mr. Biden noted that this time of the year is especially difficult for those who have lost loved ones, stating that 50 years ago this week, his wife and daughter were killed in a car crash.
So my hope this Christmas season is that we take a few moments of quiet reflection, find that stillness in the heart of Christmas. It's at the heart of Christmas. And really look at each other, not as Democrats or Republicans, not as members of Team Red or Team Blue, but as who we really are, fellow Americans, fellow human beings worthy of being treated with dignity and respect. I sincerely hope this holiday season will drain the poison that has infected our politics and set us against one another.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has in a telephone call warned United States Secretary of State Antony Blinken that the United States must stop its old routine of unilateral bullying. Wang accused the U.S. today of trying to suppress China's development. According to him, Washington must pay attention to Beijing's legitimate concerns, warning the U.S. against trying to challenge China's red lines using what he called salami slicing tactics. He was referring to the practice of using a series of small actions to achieve a much larger result that will be difficult to accomplish with a single large action. The remarks by Wang underscored the deep tensions that mark relations between the world's two largest economies, even as their leaders have tried to re-engage in diplomacy in recent weeks. A brief readout from the U.S. State Department said Blinken discussed the need to maintain open lines of communications and responsibly manage the U.S.-China relationship in his call with Wang. In business news, the United States Senate has passed a $1.7 trillion spending bill that includes hundreds of billions of dollars for military spending, but fails to include a bill seen as crucial for Afghan refugees stuck in legal limbo. The Senate passed the enormous 4,155-page bill with bipartisan support yesterday with a vote of 68 to 29. The bill, which provides funding to the U.S. government through September 30, will now pass the House of Representatives today to avoid a partial government shutdown. The bill budgets about $858 billion for military spending, $772.5 billion for various domestic programs, and $45 billion for another round of military and economic aid for Ukraine. Senate Democratic Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, speaking after the passing of the bill, said the bill is one of the most significant appropriation packages the Senate has done in a long time.
Well, I'm just befuddled by some of these right-wing Republicans who don't want to help Ukraine. It's always been the harder right you were, the more anti-Soviet you were, the more anti-Russian you were, and all of a sudden they're pro. And I hope it's not a residue of Trump. Trump had a relationship with Putin that was poisonous for American security. And if these folks are following him, they're making a huge mistake. But that is not the majority of the Republicans. As you saw, we had a record amount of money for Ukraine.
The World Bank Executive Board has approved $500 million in development financing for Egypt to expand its social safety net and protection program in the face of global economic pressures filtering through to the country's economy. The country's international cooperation minister confirmed this today. The funds will support the government's Takaful and Karama conditional and unconditional cash transfer program, first launched in 2015, which targets low-income Egyptians eligible for government support. The network has already received $900 million in funds since its launch in 2015 and helps around 12.8 million people in the Arab world's most populous country. And to the exciting world of sport, Inter Milan goalkeeper Andre Onana has announced his retirement from international football. Onana was dropped by Cameroon for two of their three group stage games at the 2022 FIFA World Cup after a disagreement with head coach Rigobert Song. The goalie announced on social media that he will no longer represent his country. Onana made his senior debut with Cameroon in September 2016 and played 34 games with his national team. And still talking sports from the EPL, Erik ten Hag hoped his meticulous planning throughout the World Cup break will ensure Manchester United remain on track for a top 4 finish and silverware. United, who ended a 38-day absence from competitive action in Wednesday 2-0 Carabao Cup 4th round victory over Burnley, resumed their Premier League campaign against Nottingham Forest at Old Trafford on December 27th. 5th place United sit 3 points outside the top 4 ahead of the resumption, and Ten Hag has left no stone unturned as he prepares to mastermind a drive into the Champions League qualification places before the season ends. United's progress in the Carabao Cup has strengthened Ten Hag's hope of ending the club's wait for a first trophy since 2017.
So it's all on individual base, and no one is the same. No one is at the same program. No one at the same minutes, or they play of course all in different positions, different age. So we really try to get for everyone an individual plan. But we all know that the restart is 5-6 days after the World Cup final, and we all know that after a World Cup, the Premier League continues quickly. So everyone has to be ready for that, and so you have to accept it. That is for the manager, for the coaching staff, but also for the players. They have to accept it, and they want trophies. So we want to have a strong team to battle for the trophies. We just spoke about the tough competition in that, so we have to be ready for it.
And before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. At least 2 people have been killed and 4 others injured after a shooting in the central district of Paris, the French capital. Togo's President Faure Gnassingbé will oversee the armed forces as part of a reshuffle amid growing security concerns in the northern region. The United States House of Representatives January 6 Committee final report asserts that former President Donald Trump criminally engaged in a multi-part conspiracy to overturn the unlawful result of the 2020 presidential election. You can follow us on all our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thank you for watching. Do have a splendid weekend. I am Sunday